Good evening, Winthrop, and welcome to the Winthrop Town Council meeting of May 4th, 2021. It is 7 p.m. and we are having a remote town council meeting, which will be shown live on WCAT and will be reshown throughout the week on replays. The phone number to join us for public comment is 1-312-626-6799 with an ID number of 873-935-47589. Could I please have a roll call?
Councilor Ruggiero.
Oh, here, sorry.
Councilor Flockhart. Not sure if she can get on. She's here. Councilor DeMarco.
Here.
Councilor Terry.
Yeah.
Councilor Honan.
Here.
Councilor Conti.
Present.
Councilor Farino. Vice President Christopher.
Here.
President Boncory.
Here. Okay, there being a quorum, I will now call this meeting to order. And I would ask Councilor Ruggiero to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I was going to have Barbara do it, but I don't think she's getting on in voice. So, Councilor Ruggiero.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. We have lost two people this week that were very active in town government. And I would like to have a moment of silence for Kim Liskay, who was one of our library employees, and also a moment of silence to recognize Claire Sheltry. Claire was the last elected town clerk. She served as town clerk for this town for 25 years, and she retired in 2007 after we started to appoint town clerks. So please bow your head for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. The minutes have been distributed of the April 20th meeting and of the April 27th emergency meeting. They've been circulated to the council. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
There's been a motion made to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Are there any additions to the minutes? Are there any omissions? Are there any corrections? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve, which has been done, and all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye when your name is called.
Councilor Ruggiero.
Yes.
Councilor Flockhart.
Yes.
Councilor DeMarco.
Yes.
Councilor Terry.
Yes.
Councilor Honan.
Yes.
Councilor Conti.
Yes.
Councilor Farino.
Yes.
Vice President Christopher.
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes.
Thank you.
Minutes are approved of both April 20th and April 27th of 2021. Under general information, I guess we have some good news on the pandemic, which I'm sure Meredith is coming on. Terry, is Meredith going to be with us?
He's on.
And the thing is, she is on.
Yep.
Okay. And, I'm sure she'll give a report to the town manager report, but I just want to say, Winthrop, keep up the good work, and let's have 0 people getting affected every day. The other thing I'd like to do during recommendations is issue a citation. And this citation is for someone who has worked very hard in Winthrop for many, many years, a good friend who served not only as the chief of the fire department and as the harbor master for the town of Winthrop, but also did a term on the Winthrop Town Council in between those two jobs. So I would like to read the citation, which is the Town of Winthrop Town Council citation. Be it known to all that the Town of Winthrop and the Winthrop Town Council hereby offers its appreciation to Lawrence Larry Powers, Fire Chief, Harbor Master, and Town Councilor. On behalf of the residents of the Town of Winthrop, we extend our most sincere gratitude for your past devotion and commitment to not only the services you have provided our town, but the personal touch you included. Congratulations on your retirement. We offer nothing but the best in all your future endeavors, given this 4th day of May 2021 in Winthrop, Massachusetts, signed by Council President Philip Boncory, Rich Marino, James Lettieri, Nick Ponte, Tracy Honan, Peter Christopher, Stephen Ruggiero, Barbara Flockhart, and Robert DeMarco. Okay, did we ask Larry to come on?
I actually had asked Larry, and I talked to him just about a half an hour ago. And unfortunately, something had come up that he couldn't make this meeting, but he thanks everybody wholeheartedly.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on, we have no public hearings tonight on any issues. There's no major motions that are coming up at this month's meeting, but we do have public comment, and I would like to open this up for public comment. I see we have about 20 attendees, 19 to 20 are attendees, so we are now open for public comment. Do we have any hands?
We have one hand, Craig Mail.
Good evening, Craig.
Craig, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Good evening. Thank you for taking my call. Just a moment of reference at line 16 on your agenda tonight. You speak to the fact that in public relations and upcoming events, you have immediate committee openings for Airport Hazards, Board of Appeals, Planning Board, TSAC, and Conservation Committee. I'd also like to mention, and I think it's a very, very important element right now, the town council back somewhere in the 2013 area voted to establish an advisory committee for IT to help the town council and the town look at issues related to IT. And I think over the last year, we've learned the value, not just the value of IT, but how it's going to affect us in the future. And I would ask the council president to use his strong voice and will to see if you can possibly try to generate some members for that committee. And in doing so, I'd like the committee to take into consideration the fact that in the president's new infrastructure bill, IT and related elements of IT have become part of what could be considered infrastructure. Based on the fact that it would now be considered infrastructure, that would also allow us to look at other models for funding. We fund roads and projects in town through long-term bonds. The town now has both an opportunity and a potential need to move forward in the future with a more robust IT platform on, from what my understanding is, an existing platform which may not be that strong. And I would think that the committee, when it certainly wouldn't be funded, but when staffed, would be able to come up with a long-term plan for Winthrop. So the town could start to look at redoing its information backbone to include the schools, where I believe parent, teacher, student portals will become more important in the future. That would also include the ability to automate many elements that we're currently using now, whether it's for applications for boards, committees. It would give us the opportunity of looking right now and seeing how we could develop a 3 to 5 year plan, the same way that the fire chief or the DPW or the police would look at long-term capital elements. And I think that it's an important and appropriate time to see if we can't move that committee forward. So thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Craig. And I appreciate the phone conversation that we had a couple of days ago. And I want to thank you for volunteering to be on that committee, which we will talk about under new business. Are there any other people up?
No, there's no other hands up at this time.
Okay. We'll move on then. Correspondence. Denise, do we have correspondence?
I did not receive any, nope.
Does any council have any correspondence that they received they want to bring forward? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right on to committee reports. And the first committee will be finance. Councilor Lettieri.
Thank you. I'm going to try to slow down this meeting. It's going way too fast, but
I love it. The last meeting was less than half an hour. This one might be 20 minutes.
Finance Committee met earlier this evening. There were about 11 people there, including the full committee of myself, Councilor Farino, Councilor Honan. The one topic of discussion was a potential trash fee. There was much conversation about it. We've done many hours of work on this. I want to especially thank Director Calla for his work. And it's incredible how much work goes into trying to create an enterprise fund and trying to really nail down the users and any issues that might arise. And, you know, it's a new process, but I thank Director Calla for all his help in this. We did have, again, like I say, much discussion of a fee. We did discuss 3 alternatives in this. We thought, well, we discussed 3 alternatives. The condition is this, that we know how we got here. There's a new contract that was signed that became effective July 1st, 2020. That new contract basically raised our trash fee, our trash allotment about 40% from roughly 1.2 million to roughly 1.7 million and change. We had a very good contract for many years. The cost of trash has gone through the roof. The cost of recycling has gone through the roof. And you know, that was the deal we got. So recently it was signed, and that becomes a 5-year contract, and it started July 1st of 2020. So the town has appropriated 1.2 million roughly for trash, and now we're going to have a deficiency of a little over $500,000. For this year, fiscal 21, which we're in now, the council made a very tough decision to take money out of stabilization to cover that appropriation, to cover that line item for fiscal 21. We needed a more concrete solution going into fiscal 22. In the town manager's budget, the recommendation was to keep that same appropriation of 1.2 million, which left a deficit of roughly, you know, 600,000-ish. The committee, after much thought it would be best to create an enterprise fund to have transparency in trash and to have a fee from users to subsidize that shortage. There were basically 3 options that the committee looked at. One was to implement a fee. One was to take money out of stabilization, and the other would be to just take it out of the budget, just make cuts to offset it. Immediately, the thought was, the majority of us immediately thought that to take it out of stabilization is just not even an option. As much as it is an option, it really isn't. You can't use one-time money for ongoing cost. It isn't the right thing to do financially. It would have a totally negative impact on our bond rating, and there were just many reasons why we chose not to take it out of stabilization. The other option is to try to eat it up in the budget. We have a budget which is a lot of money to a lot, you know, it's just a lot of money, $56 million, but we are not we do not easily spend money in Winthrop. We have for years been known as a town with a revenue problem, not a spending problem. So for us to try to take on $600,000 and try to cut it out of the budget, and I will ask the town manager a little later for his thoughts on what these potential cuts would involve. But you know, when you have a budget that is very highly leaning towards personnel, the cost would more than likely come from cuts. And we do not have an abundance. I'm sure, I'm pretty sure I could speak saying that I think the police department has less officers on now than they did in the 70s and 80s. And I'm sure that could be said for many departments. We owe a debt of gratitude to our public safety officers for giving us a community where we feel safe at night, during the day, to walk around and to enjoy a good standard of living. But we don't overspend in those departments. We don't overspend on DPW, and we get a tremendous amount of service for, again, a relatively small staff. I think we as a committee thought it would be very tough to try to look at cuts within the budget. I will ask the town manager for his thoughts on that, but we did not discuss that. Another potential thought was potentially to do an override. An override isn't even a consideration for what we're trying to do now, and that's to try to balance the fiscal 22 budget. Any talk of an override, question of it, thoughts about it, discussions about it would be something that would take place later in the year, and we wouldn't have the ability to have that impact, positive or negative, on this year's budget. So we did discuss what type of fee, how much of a fee. What we want to do is to try to make up the difference from the old contract to the new contract. And we want to start an enterprise fund, which would have some administrative costs. Obviously, the key component of that is to see how many users we have in this town and how many people a fee would affect. The fee obviously would only be for users who currently have curbside service. It is not for businesses or condominium owners that don't participate in the service as of now. So after a tremendous amount of discussion, there was a motion made for a $160 yearly fee. That would start July 1st. There would probably be a bill the logistics and everything will be further explained at following meetings, but there will be a yearly bill that comes out sometime in the early fall. It could be paid by mail, in person, or through the website. That fee will make up the difference of the old contract and the new contract. It will also enable us to have administration and create the enterprise fund and do the billing and answer the questions and everything else. So we did come back with a positive recommendation, 2-to-1 on a $160 yearly fee. This will not stop discussion on trash. We will continue to have discussion as far as educating the town on the new program. There is still, we believe, the vast majority of residents that aren't aware of the new contract and all the implications of it and what the contract allows and does not allow. So we will obviously get into those changes as we go forward. But as of now, we want to, there's a short window in trying to finalize this budget. And we thought it would be best. We appreciate the council president giving us the time. I know the council president's been looking for a recommendation one way or the other. He wasn't pushing us one way or the other, but was looking for a recommendation in a timely manner. And we believe we've accomplished that. So we are having positive recommendation, which we could discuss in old business later in the meeting. And that is all we discussed tonight at our finance committee. You're on mute, Council President.
So a motion will be coming on the trash fee under old business. Is that correct?
Correct.
Any other member of the committee want to discuss this? Okay, Council Honan.
I'd like to encourage any of the councilors to ask members of the finance committee, myself, Farina or Lettieri, about what Councilor Lettieri just went over. All of those points that he just covered. It was important in how we made our decision. So if you have any questions about what he just talked about, please ask us now.
Councilor DeMarco has his hand up.
Councilor Lettieri and Councilor Honan through the president. What happens if somebody can't afford the fee?
We did discuss at the meeting that we will be talking about abatements, how the process will go forward. But again, we're trying to get a fee in place, potentially to get a fee in place that will enable us to balance a budget. But we definitely talked about learning more about the administration and what it's going to entail, learning more about the billing and how it's going to entail, and talked about abatements. And you know, if we're going to use an age abatement or if we're going to use an income abatement or a combination of both, but those will be offered. There was also questions about, you know, someone opting out of the system, out of the program, out of being able to have their trash picked up. And an opt-out clause would obviously be in. However, the user would have to show the town in writing that they have a contract with another certified hauler. So we would know that their trash would be getting picked up. It just wouldn't be picked up by the town. So there are little nuances that we will be continuing to come forward with the council. But the abatement is, thank you for the question, and it has been discussed, and we will come back with a recommendation on that.
A follow-up, President. And we just tell me if I have my facts right. The budget is 56 million for the oncoming year, and we're talking about 600,000 essentially the outstanding balance. And
yeah, the budget's actually a little bit more than that when you count enterprise funds and everything else, but yes.
Okay. And I guess that's all I have till old business. Thank you.
Thank you,
Councilor DeMarco. Any other council have any discussion?
President Boncory?
Yes, Council Flockhart.
Would the residents be able to pay this monthly or quarterly instead of in a lump sum?
I'm supposing that it's going to be billed 4 times a year, either with the tax bill or the water bill.
No, we did have a lot of discussion on that. Thank you for that question, Council Flockhart. The plan right now is we want it to be billed on its own. There was discussion about being billed with water and sewer. We just thought that's too much confusion. The water and sewer bills should stand on their own. We wanted complete transparency with this and differentiating it from water and sewer or any other bill. So it will be, we made sure with our software provider that we have the capability of doing that. And again, there's a cost to doing a mailing, and it's roughly $2,000. So we thought it would be best to bill once a year. And again, it would be able to be broken up. We're not sure how that would work yet, but there's still a definitely smaller logistics, but the plan is, I guess, to answer your question, it would be, as of now, a yearly bill that would be probably going out in early to mid-August of, of this year for fiscal 22.
Okay. And Council Farino.
Yeah, I was the dissenting vote that voted against this. Basically, there's a lot of questions still to be answered. It's open-ended. Well, we discussed this, we discussed that. We did a lot of discussion, but we made no specific plans on how this would be implemented, other than a fee. And there's a lot to go into this. And I know we're short in time and we're dealing with the budget. The public needs to know the implications of not doing a fee, what it would cost in services, what it would cost as potential layoffs. And I think, we don't need to make a decision on this tonight. I think it needs to be vented a little more within the council and within the public. And I think that the acting manager needs to weigh in a little bit of some of the potential losses of services or whatever impact it may have on the budget. So those are my questions that, I think left me a little apprehensive about voting on this in the positive. So, I just want to let you know that's why I dissented on my vote.
Thank you, Councilor Farino. And I think our position is either we set a fee or we don't set a fee. I think the logistics of collecting the fee are administrative, and I don't think we have a say in how the administration does that really. That would be the town manager and the department heads to administrate once we set as policy that there's a fee. So I just a little bit of disagreement there, but I hear where you're coming from, Councilor Farino. Anyone else? Councilor Honan?
I just want to reiterate that the $600,000 fee would come from those who have curbside pickup. It would not come from those people that do not have their trash picked up. If we're taking this, or we're thinking about taking it from our budget, $600,000 from our budget, I'd ask people to either come to a finance commission meeting or look at our budget online and let me know if they think they can find $600,000 from our existing budget where we can cut services and salaries. Please let us know, because it's tight. We run a tight ship. We're lean. We run lean. And if you can find $600,000 that we can cut, we would love to know where you think you can cut it. What about an override? People are talking about an override. So an override cannot happen by July 1st. It will not happen. And so in fact, we'd have to wait until fall. Now with the budget, we cannot neglect to appropriate money for costs we know we will incur. We cannot do that. So an override would impose a tax on people who do not currently pay for trash. And it would vote to raise their own taxes to pay for trash that they don't currently have picked up. People say, why can't we take it out of the stabilization fund? Well, I talked to our assistant CFO today, and he said taking it out of our stabilization fund would be extremely irresponsible and a disservice to this community. Our bond rating agencies and the DOR will have many questions on such an action, and they will certainly lower our bond rating, which would stay with us for the life of any bond issue for 10, 20, or 30 years. So those are just some of the reasons why we didn't just discuss it. We came to a conclusion. We looked at the facts, and this is what we talked about. And that's why we made the decision that we did.
Thank you, Councilor Honan. Councilor Ruggiero.
Thank you, Council President. Question for the committee. And again, this might be on the edge of administrative, but I just kind of want to get the thoughts of the committee and if this came up in their discussions. So first, I'd just like to know a little bit more about the calculation for $160 annually per, I'm guessing that's per household. Was that just a simple division, the bill divided by the number of current users we have? Is that what we're accounting for?
Yep. Do you want to continue the question, or is that you want me to just?
Well, so that's part one, and then I guess part two is we're going with the not the pay-as-you-throw method. We're going with one bucket per household, and then my follow-up to the follow-up is if it's a multifamily home and, you know, say it's a two-family home, but you only need one bucket. Do you need to provide proof of another contractor, and or can you just share the bucket with the other unit? I hope that's clear. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No. As far as the fee and the calculation of the fee, we did go through. We had the help of many people to try to really knock that down as to what the users are, because it does at some point become a division problem. And at first, you know, we had numbers from the town manager, we've had numbers from the assessors, we'd had numbers from DPW. And again, I thank DPW for going above and beyond, and the assessor for really, you know, literally following the trucks around and counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we did come up with a number of users. You know, we have two-family homes. If it's a two-family condominium, there would be a separate bill sent to the owner of each condominium. If there was a two-family house, there would be 2 bills sent to the owner of that two-family house. If it was a 3-family house, so on and so forth. 4 families, we do not pick up. So there were a lot of calculations that went involved. And then we had to discuss and come up with thoughts on administration of the enterprise fund, cost of postage, cost of doing mailings, cost of education, because I think it's important, because I still truly believe that the vast majority of people don't even know we have a new trash contract and know that there's going to be any differences. So that's the answer to how we came up with that. So we also wanted to make sure we had some sort of surplus. A fee is like a water and sewer fee. It could be leaned or whatever, so the money would eventually come in. But if there was, you know, abatements or shortage in paying or whatever, we wanted to make sure we generated some sort of, you know, surplus that would give us confidence that we were going to make the payments of the contract. As far as the pay-as-you-throw method versus a fee, we did and continue to discuss pay-as-you-throw in terms of either a supplemental to the trash, because the way we're being billed on the existing contract now, the new contract, is basically based on tonnage. So there's a fee for the service. There's a fee for Capital Waste to come to your house and pick up your trash. That is one part of the contract. And part B of the contract is the cost of disposing of that trash. So the cost of the tonnage. and we are allotted X amount of dollars in the contract for a certain amount of tonnage. When we exceed that tonnage on a regular basis, we would be getting billed regularly extra. For example, in the first 7 months or 8 months of this contract, we did incur cost of roughly $45,000 for increased tonnage. Now, we allot a lot of that to the fact that during COVID, there have been so many more people at home, so therefore relating to more trash. So we feel relatively comfortable with the tonnage, but that was another factor in the fee to make sure, again, you're creating a surplus to pay for tonnage. And then when we talked about tonnage, that is when the pay as you throw, so to speak, it for bags came into existence, where if you had more trash than the allotted barrel, you might, we're considering looking at a bag system that you would be able to buy bags. For example, in Ashland, which I discussed in a prior meeting, they do a hybrid model where they pay for their trash. And I said this in finance, after doing all the research on this and talking to so many people in other towns, we've been extremely fortunate to have this service. I mean, it's not becoming the norm to have the pickup service that is just incurred in the town budget. It's becoming more and more the norm to have some sort of supplementation or a straight pay as you throw system. So we did look into the bags, the information that we've got, and I know the Zero Waste Committee is also doing a lot of work, and I know Wendy has been added to that and has kind of taken that ball and looking at some of the logistics of this. But in terms of the bags, there are smaller bags that are basically $1 a bag, and a larger bag that's maybe $2 a bag. And, that would be potentially for overages if you had something that didn't fit in the barrel that you wanted to put out more trash. But we haven't come to any conclusions on that. But that would basically be used for the increased tonnage that you're talking about.
Okay. No, and thank you for the response. I just got one more sort of question. So I'm glad to hear that a surplus was kept in mind, just because I know that fees sometimes increase, as we all know here in town, and we signed a 5-year contract with Capital Waste. If I'm not mistaken, it was 5 years. Do you anticipate this fee needing to go up? Because that's, I wouldn't want to impose a fee and then say in a year from now, we're going to come back asking for more. So I'm glad to hear that surplus was taken into account, but is that something that came up in the discussions as well?
It did come into the discussion. I think Council Honan was keen on that, to look at because the contract is not a flat contract. I mean, we're into the second year already.
Right.
But it was not a flat. It was fat, but it was not a flat contract. It had increases on a yearly basis in tonnage and in service. So to answer your question, honestly, yes, we did have a surplus that will help us with that. But there's many other questions as we go forward in budgeting cycles as to availability for funds for the town in general, and how we redistribute that 1.26 million that's going to trash now. But yes, the surplus that we have in there would be sufficient, assuming nothing but the contract changed. It would be sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the committee? I want to thank the committee, and you were successful, Councilor Terry, in delaying the meeting. You would, good job. All right, moving on. Councilor Terry, you also have the Millerfield Committee.
Yeah, Millerfield, this will be really quick. So Millerfield is meeting next week, but we did have some information on Millerfield that, and even I think Director Caller is here too to talk about this, but we are going into the registry for bidding now for the project for the dog park, as well as the shed for the golf shed. So that should be bid out sometime in late May or early June. And everything else as far as Millerfield is good. We're talking about dedication. We're talking about the first activity in September at the field is when we would have a dedication for the field house, rededicating the Millerfield sign. So we will talk about all the dedication, but I would ask Director Calla just to talk quickly, because I know it's important to the council president too, to make sure that those two items get straightened out. Director Calla?
Yep, so you're accurate, Councilor. It's hitting the central register this week. I actually think it's tomorrow, Wednesday. We anticipate a bid opening late May, and we'll award it expeditiously. We want to get it going. We have the building plans. So what we're bidding is the site work for the maintenance shed and the full installation of the dog park. The kit has already been, the building kit has already been purchased. After the site work and the foundation is in place for the building, the facilities manager will solicit quotes for installation of that kit. And it's not a very expensive contract. That's probably a $20,000 to $25,000 expense. The biggest expense, of course, is the site work and the prep for the building and then the dog park, which will be all inclusive of this bid.
Great. Thank you. When would, Councilor Jerry, when do you think we will be dedicating the tennis courts? Because they look like they're coming along real well. They've been working there every day. I think they couldn't work in the rain one day, but other than that, they're there every day, and that looks like it's coming along fine.
Yeah, that's coming along quickly. It's coming along right on schedule. Graduation is set for June 4th. The thought is that we might be able to use some of the parking for June 4th. As far, the plan has always been to have those courts ready by the 4th of July. And I think we feel pretty comfortable that they'll be ready completely finished sometime late June. As far as a dedication, we haven't discussed a rededication of the tennis courts, but I'm sure it will be done, and maybe it could be done in conjunction with the Miller Field, where you'd have more people for, well, hopefully we're allowed to have more people, but where you'd have people for, and it wouldn't be after school is out and not in session. So yeah, but those should be done. Those should be completed by July 4th.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, moving on, we have Rules and Ordinance Committee. Did you meet this?
No, we didn't meet since our last meeting. We're planning on having hearings for the rezoning of the middle school in the next upcoming weeks before we make before we send it to the full council for final approval. So just keep on the lookout for that, and we'll be having those hearings.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Vice President Christopher. Do we have a town manager? Wait a minute, is there any other committees that met or that plan to meet, Councilor Giro?
Yeah, I just want to mention quickly, the Charter Review Committee met last night and voted to approve a draft report that sort of summarizes our work since we were initiated last year. That report primarily consisted of, I'd say, non-substantive technical changes to the charter that were recommended to us by the Collins Center as a part of our grant engagement that we had with them. And then there were also 3 other recommendations that were also non-substantive in nature, but added more I guess, color to the town manager evaluation, recommending that it be conducted by the full council. That report was sent to the council president last night, and the committee is also requesting to continue its service till the end of the calendar year, just given the sort of complications with the pandemic and an election that, a couple of our members were sidetracked with. There is a will of this current committee to continue that work. So that request will also be coming to the council, but we are obligated by the first meeting in May to report back to the council. And like I said, that report was sent to the council president last night. And I think it's the will of the committee to present further on it if requested by the council. So that's sort of where we are with that. And Councilor Farino, did I miss anything? You're on mute.
You're on mute, Rich.
No, I think you covered it. Wish we had more time to do a lot more, but we got a nice little packet together, and hopefully the council will review it, and then we can further send that to the ordinance committee to review it, and then we can make some motions and get it resolved. Some of those clerical issues that were in the charter that the Collins Center asked us to take care of.
Okay, thank you. I did receive the report, and the report was due for by the first meeting in May, and I have the report in front of me. I was going to read it under new business and then assign it out to the Rules and Ordinance Committee, because all the 90% of this is all ordinance changes, not charter changes. So they would go to Rules and Ordinance. And even though the committee has completed its project, that committee can continue to make recommendations, or any individual in this town can make recommendations to Rules and Ordinances throughout the year, not just when there's a Rules and Ordinance and Charter Review Committee. And Rules and Ordinance can pick up and change ordinances, you know, by having meetings and bringing it before the council all year round. So it's not an issue where any changes have to take place only by the Rules and Ordinance, the Charter Review Committee. So I will read this under new business and assign it out then.
Just one thing on that. Collins Center was willing to work with us for the remaining of the year with that grant. So that was I think why they recommended that we continue it for the rest of the year, calendar year.
Yeah, I think
we utilize the services through the grant.
Okay, I will read this letter that I did receive from the chairman under new business, and then, as I said, you guys can stay together and come up with any recommendations you want.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move forward now to town manager's report, and we have an interim town manager, Terrence Delahanty, and I ask you to give us a town manager's report.
Thank you, Council President, and thank all the councilors as well for their vote of confidence in me stepping in as the interim town manager. So before I get into my report, I'm going to let Director Hurley jump on and do her report. And this way, we're not holding her up through my report. And Director Hurley, I'll yield the floor.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I am just going to share my screen real quick. Most of what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is actually more around vaccines. As Council President noted earlier, sorry, let me just go back a bit. We did not have any new cases reported today. So this is our current case count, 2,270 with 35 deceased. 12 currently isolated, which is amazing. I have not seen that number in quite some time, so I'm thrilled about that. And with 2,223 recovered. So vaccines, as the governor announced yesterday, they're starting to roll back the mass vac sites. So where we stand right now for our community, which I think is amazing, we have 54% of total residents have received at least their first vaccine. So when you consider that the current vaccines are approved for only those 16 and over, I think that's an excellent number as we try to approach herd immunity here. So just a bit of a breakdown. So vaccinations by age, what you'll see here is the blue bar is the total population of folks, for example, 75 and over, and all the way down. The gray are the folks that have already had at least one dose, and the green are the amount of people that are fully vaccinated. So we are trending definitely in the right direction. We expect that by next week, the FDA will grant emergency use authorization for adolescents, meaning those between 12 and 15 will become eligible for Pfizer. You know, I know that I got a message from my pediatrician's office today saying, you know, if there's an opportunity for you to pre-register your adolescent, if you're interested, it's a smart thing to do. We are unsure if we are going to be receiving any directed vaccine locally for this population, but oh, and one other quick thing that I just wanted to show too is the vaccine breakdown by race. So as we all know, we are a predominantly Caucasian community. But when you look at the breakdown of other racial groups, we're doing really well, kind of capturing and working towards more equity here. So today we announced that Winthrop, along with 8 other communities, has formed the Metro North Regional Vaccine Site. So, so there are going to be 3 locations. This is also part of the governor's plan to ramp down the mass vac site. So there are 3 locations, one at the Encore Boston Harbor in Everett, Tufts University in Medford, and the Cambridge Health Alliance main campus in Cambridge. We also will have the opportunity to do vaccine clinics within the 9 communities and also pop-up locations. This is really moving towards that targeted, you know, instead of doing massive numbers, it's really trying to capture those that either haven't been able to access it because of transportation or fear, or that their work schedule doesn't allow them to, you know, make an appointment or make a secondary follow-up appointment. It's really bringing the vaccines to people. So what has to be guaranteed is that at least 750 vaccines will be given per day, with the opportunity to ramp up to 5,000 vaccines a day, depending on the supply that the state is getting. Cambridge Health Alliance is the health provider for all 3 sites. It's going to be staffed by Cambridge Health Alliance, local health departments, and Tufts University. Part of this agreement that MAPC negotiated with the state is that 25% of vaccine supply that is being given to this regional effort will be reserved for targeted community efforts, meaning if we wanted to work with the schools and do an in-school clinic, there's a potential for that. If we want to work with, if we have additional homebound populations within the 9 communities, it'll be used for that. It'll be used for, you know, the mobile vaccines. And all appointments can be made using the same site that the state has been using, color.com. And there is the link down there. And you can always call the EOC at 617-539-5837 with any questions, or if anybody needs any help making appointments. That's it for tonight.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Meredith? Councilor Honan.
Hey, Meredith. How did the testing numbers look as opposed to how they looked months ago?
So much lower as it's been across the state. I want to say we're running in the like 2,000 people a week, maybe less than that, have been getting tested.
Across the state, not Winthrop.
Yeah, exactly. So, so much lower.
Do you think we're missing? Positives, or it's just?
I don't know. You know,
are being tested, or is indicative of the general population?
I'm not sure. I think I wonder if we got a little fatigue around testing in a way. That the more we were all tested, the more that we kind of engaged in the testing, and also hearing the positive news that's coming from the state that the cases are coming down, and that the vaccine efforts are, you know, that our state is doing so well. Locally, we're doing really well. So I've been visiting the state site a few times, the Stop the Spread sites in the last few weeks. And honestly, I never wait. There's many open appointments every day. It's not like it used to be. The demand is much lower.
Thank you.
Okay, did someone else have their hand up? Councilor DeMarco, I thought.
Yeah, I did. I'm all set, Council President.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Terry.
Yep, just a quick question. I'm just doing numbers here, but is when we're at 54%, and that's based on the total population, so it's really more like 65 or whatever it is, which is great. When we get numbers nationally and stuff, that's always based on population, or is it just based on over 16? When we get national?
I think I believe that it's the total population. So, so for example, the numbers that we use for this is that we have 18,868 total population in Winthrop, and 0 to 19 constitutes 3,567. So I've, you know, like I'll crunch the numbers a bit and take out about 3,000 people, 3,000, maybe 2,500, just like as an estimate. And it definitely drives up the percent of vaccinations. You know, to look at, I'm looking at the numbers right now, and for the 0 to 19, 216 residents have received at least the first vaccine in that age group, but really it's only 16 to 19, and 216 people as of last Thursday had received at least the first vaccine for that. So, you know, it's a good thing Revere hosted. It was a clinic with CIC on Sunday from 8 to 4 over at Rumney Marsh. And they were giving out the Pfizer vaccine. So we sent it out through the schools. We encouraged anybody that was interested. And they had plenty of appointments open, and it was open to all residents in Winthrop, Revere, and Chelsea.
Well, thank you again for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing no one else, Terry, I think you're back.
Yes, thank you. So again, congratulations to Larry Powers. I had the pleasure of working with him as a fire chief and also as the harbor master and as a counselor. So I appreciate him, and certainly congratulations to Arthur Hickey for taking over the harbor master job as he transitions out of the police department to his retirement. So congratulations for both of those guys. I hope they're only retire once though, Larry, not twice. But North Suffolk Public Health Collaborative was awarded a significant grant for an epidemiologist for Winthrop, Revere, and Chelsea. And that'll be a significant help to Meredith's efforts and the staff that she has working there. The key I take out of the letter from the governor and the lieutenant governor is that they said, as a lead applicant for the Public Health Excellence for Shared Services, we grant the MAPC for the North Suffolk Public Health Collaborative. Those are strong words for everything we've accomplished and all the health efforts that we've put in locally as well as regionally. So I'm certainly pleased to hear those words from the governor and the lieutenant governor. I signed a letter today to support the MVP action grant that will look at Belle Isle Marsh and coastal inundation around that area. So hopefully we'll get awarded that grant to start studying some areas like the Belle Isle Marsh. Towson Shirley Street intersection is underway. It should be complete hopefully rather soon. That was paid for by the MWRA, constructed by the MWRA. That come on the heels of many complaints that we had down the Point Shirley about people going down Towson in the wrong direction. And now we're making it more defined to make it more clear. It is a one-way. Also, it gives us the chances to realign the stop signs so people actually stop and can see to the left the cars are coming. So those are safety issues that we were able to get corrected by MWRA. The ferry, I have many questions lately on the ferry. I just wanted to make sure the public was aware of what I'm advising the council. And right now we have no commitment from DEP for funding. We have a letter into DEP that went out by Austin about 2 weeks ago. We're following up with DEP. That's one of the larger funding sources for the ferry at $150,000. The MBTA train stations in Quincy are now open. So the 80,000 from the MBTA, we will not be getting this year. We are working with our legislative representatives to see if there's any other money that we could pull in to this project. And Quincy has committed. However, the funding that they gave us last year, they might not be able to give us this year. So we're still working out an agreement on how much funding. So the ferry does cost $455,000. Last year, ticket sales was at $50,000. So the majority of the ferry service has to be made up on grant money or collaborations like with Quincy. And so I feel confident that we will get money from DEP. I think it's just, we gotta just, be patient and push them a little bit and try to use our senator who's committed to helping us, and also the representative, to see, if we can get them to speed up the process a little bit. However, I think there's enough money in reserves to start the ferry service. I just don't want to start it and close it down in July. So, the new fiscal year, this is an enterprise account. And I know we talked about trash enterprise accounts earlier. Enterprise accounts are supposed to be self-sufficient. You can stage them in over time, absolutely. But the purpose of an enterprise account is they're supposed to be self-sufficient. They're supposed to have reserves, and they're supposed to be able to maintain their own financial obligations. So that's what we definitely need. We don't have the flexibility in this budget, and the future budgets are only going to get worse. So the money that's coming for grants, if we're supplanting our budget personnel lines with grant money, we're in big trouble in 2024. So I just warn that, because I know ARPA's money and everyone's saying you can use it for the pay police and fire or this one. Once we do that, we are sinking the ship. So it's very important that we keep our personnel costs on the general fund. And unless we have a plan to move it off for 1 year and move it back in. So it's very important that with these grant opportunities, we do not, and we're very careful of how we use it and what we're using it for. We should be looking for one-time projects that we can do with that funding. One-time, whatever, just make sure it's that one time and it's not a recurring cost to our general fund and our budget lines. So grant opportunities, we're pursuing several grant opportunities. One of them, Violence Against Women's Act, was grant opportunity, and that will be helpful to get a social worker to follow up on domestic violence under Meredith Hurley's office. Parks and Recs, I've sat with Sean Driscoll. The park, Ingleside Park equipment should be hitting the state list as well, the state bid list this week. And we're hoping to have that up and running for the summer. So we're trying to aggressively move that. Summer programs will resume this year for Parks and Recs. Please, everyone go to the Parks and Recs website and pay attention to the registration. He needs the support. They had a rough year last year with the pandemic, and we're trying to get those programs. Sean is an enterprise fund as well. So if people don't sign up for the programs and they don't pay their fees, then Parks and Recs doesn't exist unless we come to the council and ask to use one-time money to see if we can get them through a difficult time. But we have to be careful, because again, our budget is so close. Free cash this year is going to be diminished greatly. Free cash is what we use to put into our stabilization funds. So the more we cut budgets, the closer we get to the bare bones on each department, the less free cash we have at the end of each year. So therefore, the stabilization funds don't grow. They actually start to recede as we're using the money for other projects. So it's very important that we keep that in mind as well. The police department will be running their Police Citizens Police Academy for youth this summer. So please go to the Facebook page of the police department to sign up for that. I am going to ask Director Calla to step in with the CBD in just a moment. But very important, Craig Mayo mentioned earlier about cybersecurity. So we've been working with Homeland Security on evaluating the town systems as well as the school systems. We came in an emergency mode during their incident. However, the MIT Cybersecurity Clinic from MIT has asked us to engage with them in their clinic to be part of their project, to come in and look at our system and give a recommendation as to what they think we need to do. So I'm grateful for former Councilor Mayo to bring this up, and hopefully he can be part of that as well. So thank you for him. I think something we have to look at as a policy decision here is continuity of government. I think we need to layer our government, that we don't run into problems that if someone gets sick or someone can't come in for an extended period of time, that we have no place to go. So, the police department is set up pretty sufficiently. We have a deputy chief that can step in. Director Calla has set up his department, but he has Aaron Armistead who can step in. I think we need to look at that for the town manager's office and general government side of things. And it's called continuity of government. It's a term that's been around for a very long time, but there's a sheet that actually goes with that says, if this one's out, it falls to this person here. So I think that's something we should look at. Superintendent Howard and I had some discussions over the last week. She's asking if we can keep the polling places as they were in the last election. She's concerned going back full-time after a pandemic with interruptions to the educational process, and she wants to be able to commit to the students as well as parents that there's no extra days off in the school year next year. So I asked the council to consider that as a request from the superintendent. Trash fee, I've been asked, I think Councilor Lettieri asked me for my comments. I understand the staging. I think if we're doing 1.2 million in trash, when we can't afford other things, I think that's too much. I think we really should be looking at somewhere 800,000 to 900,000 for trash and free up revenues to support other services. I know that's a very unpopular comment. I understand that. I'm a taxpayer and I'll be paying a trash fee. I think it's equitable to say per unit or per residential unit, because 3 families get 3 households in it, where the single family has 1. I have certainly a family of 4. There's many weeks we put 2 barrels out. You know, if we have people over, we have a birthday party, we have 2 barrels going out and not 1. So I feel the pain of those that have more than a 4 family, 4 members in their family, and certainly, but that's something I think we need to consider. And I don't know how that raises the tonnage. I asked Steve today to give me a tonnage report for the last year as well as the previous year to see the tonnages, look at the tonnages, and you know, is there more room for flexibility, or is it one barrel? So those are the comments I have. I'll ask Steve to certainly jump in with the Center Business District update, because I think everyone sees 1 crew working down there. It's going to ramp up pretty quick, and he's better educated and more knowledgeable in that area. So Steve, thank you.
So good evening again, Council. Exactly what the Terry mentioned. You do see crews. The crews have been ongoing now since early April. Their focus right now is wrapping up the remaining drainage work that was left over from the previous calendar year. They probably have another 6 weeks of infrastructure drainage work. And then, as Terry mentioned, they will be bringing in multiple crews and things will start ramping up. After the drainage work is done, they'll be reclaiming all the roads down in the center, which is the pulverization process of the existing asphalt. They'll get that reclaimed, and then they'll put all the streets in a binder course of asphalt, and they'll get onto their curb removal and resetting. They have electrical conduits that will be going into the sidewalks for the new lighting, and the sidewalk work and the street work and the temporary parking lot will start being disassembled for the plaza. So all those things will begin to happen at a much faster pace than probably what it felt when you were watching the infrastructure work going on. We are still confident that we will meet substantial completion by the end of this calendar year. It was always a 2-year construction project with a punch list anticipated, a short punch list, but anticipated for the spring of the 3rd calendar year. And we're on pace for that. So that's where we are right now. You will see drainage work for the next several weeks, and then we'll be moving right into the surface work.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Terry, is that the end of your report?
That is just it. Council should be just aware that I work with Robert Powers. I'm office manager over at the finance department to go through everyone's budget, making sure we're going to be closing in the black. It's a pleasure to work with Robbie, and certainly is very knowledgeable. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the council for the interim town manager? Or for Steve Calla, Council Farino?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Acting Manager, thank you for that report. It was very good and well informed. Just wanted to double up on the conservation agent. Where we're with that. I had a conversation with Karen Wynn. She's very concerned about that. I know Councilor Honen's been sending some emails also. I just wanted if you could do a follow-up or give us an update or any information you know on that.
Sure. So there's been 2 job offers that have been sent out. My understanding, and I will follow up in the morning with Rachel Kelly, the planner, that neither one of those positions will serve as a specific conservation agent for each community. So, you know, that's another issue that we're going to have to address. That's not in the budget. If we want a conservation agent, we can, you know, we're going to have to find the funding for that conservation agent to service Winthrop. So these 2 other positions don't do that. They're more on a global planning aspect of things on conservation and not an agent. I think we have significant construction that will be going on that an agent will be necessary for the town of Winthrop, like we've had in the past. So that's my understanding. I will follow up again to make sure I completely comprehend that, since I had to come up to speed quickly on that issue. But again, that's something else I'll be bringing back to the council because I think it's an important issue. We have a lot of conservation issues that come up, just enforcement and permitting. So I hope I answered your question, and I will follow up.
No, and you know, it's been daunting because we were under the impression that BOT grant and the regional person was going to take care of our conservation needs, and it didn't turn out to be that way. You know, there's some questions about where the fees go for permitting. Maybe we should set up an enterprise fund for those fees also, so that maybe they can offset some of the costs of the agent, as opposed to going elsewhere, wherever they go. So something to think about when we're considering restoring that position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because I believe the council was led to believe that we were going to have a shared conservation agent with Revere, and I guess that's not the case. Is that correct?
You know, again, that's my understanding. I will, you know, tomorrow morning get on it with the planner and also look at the job postings and the grant application, the grant award letters to ensure that my understanding is correct. And I will update the council if I have misspoken.
Thank you. Any other questions for the interim town manager? Hearing none, we will move on to the school committee report. The school committee met on April 26th. We had a meeting and we were informed that the school purchased new touch-view TVs for all the rooms and 6 movable touchscreen TVs for certain classrooms. It didn't have the full one. We learned that graduation would be on June 4th. It will be on Miller Field. And the spring athletics started on April 26th. Congratulations to the football, the fall athletics, that Winthrop Vikings are now the NBC champs. I think we had announced that before. But our cheerleaders also took 2nd place in the state. So we had some good results with the fall sports. I spoke with the superintendent today, and she tells me that all the teachers are back other than one that has to teach remote because of ADA issues. She said the classes are going well. That remote teacher is doing a great job doing it remotely. She said the school mitigation protocols that they put in have been working excellent, and as of a full month back in, there has been not one in-school spread of virus, and that's great, and it's something that you can see in the numbers that we're getting from Meredith as well. There will be a prom held on June 1st. There will be a senior-only prom at Hyatt, and there will the reason it's a senior-only prom is that those kids will not be going back to the school system after that graduation on the 4th. There will be a summer program for kids from kindergarten to the 8th grade in math, English, and English second language. And there will be a summer program for middle schoolers and high school as well. But it will be on a class basis to make up deficiencies in what they got for grades during the year. But there will be makeup high school, and there will be full English and math program for K to 8. Okay, and that is the school department report. Are there any questions on that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to old business. And on the old business, the first is a motion for the council to vote on in the amount of $37,750 for the use of retained earnings in the water and sewer fund. Did the finance committee go over that?
Yeah, Council President, this is a motion that goes back to the early March. The Finance Committee voted on this in March 4th meeting, voted with positive recommendation. There was also, there were also 3 other motions concerning stabilization funds there. And then there was a meeting that was, I think the town manager couldn't make, and it was delayed and whatever. Somehow or another, this got put off the agenda, or we didn't take it up. So this is a motion that's already been approved. Well, it already has positive recommendation from the Finance Committee, and we are just asking for a vote from the council to confirm it. I do not have the actual motion in front of me.
I have a. So,
okay, if you could read it, that would be, it does have positive recommendation from the Finance
Committee. The motion is, I move the town council vote the use of retained earnings, water sewer fund in the amount of $37,750 for costs associated with Revere Street sewer repairs resulting from a sewer collapse on December 24th, 2020, or take any other action there too. And that is the motion. It came out of the Finance Committee with a positive recommendation. Doesn't need a second. Is there any discussion on it? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye when your name is called.
Council Ruggiero?
Yes.
Council Flockhart?
Yes.
Council DeMarco?
Yes.
Council Terry?
Yes.
Council Honan?
Yes.
Council Conti?
Yes.
Council Farino?
Yes.
Vice President Christopher?
Yes.
President Boncory?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Also, under old business, we have the proposed trash rate. Councilor Terry, you want to start again?
Sure. I mean, basically coming out of committee, we have a motion to create a fee, a user fee for users of curbside pickup of $160 a year starting fiscal 22.
All right, and that has come out of committee.
With positive recommendation.
A positive recommendation, therefore does not need a second. Is there any discussion on the proposed $160 trash fee? Councilor DeMarco first.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you to the Finance Committee. I know this hasn't been an easy task. And to Councilor Honan and Councilor Lettieri and Councilor Farino through the President, you know, I don't not understand reality here. I get what's going on. The problem I have with this fee right now is we have a town in here that's looking at it and saying, our taxes went up for the high school, our taxes went up for the football field, our water bills are through the roof. We just went through a pandemic, and now you're asking us to pay a fee for trash. When does it stop? So my feeling on this would be to not vote on this today and to try to do something, just look at other alternatives. So if we have to make this painful vote, we make this painful vote knowing that we've exhausted all other avenues. But that would be my thought. This is not something I want to do to the people in town. And I know it's not just them. I mean, it's everybody who's hurting a little bit now. So I would like to see if there are any more alternatives. And I know you guys have worked hard, but maybe we can work a little harder and maybe take 2 weeks or 4 weeks. We're not looking at a payment until July. Is that accurate, Councilor Lettieri?
We're not looking for a bill to be sent out probably till August, but we are looking to vote on a budget in the beginning of June. I 100% respect your comments, agree with a lot of your comments. Hard decisions are made. That's why we're elected to do this. It's not to make the popular decisions. It's to make the decisions that have to be made. I would be more than happy to try to get a recommendation either from Robbie or from interim town manager Delahanty as to the severity of cuts that would have to be made to make up. We're asking for a supplementation of trash. If we went to a straight user fee to pay, and I think the interim town manager discussed in his report about the purpose of an enterprise fund and the goal of an enterprise fund. The goal of an enterprise fund is to try to be self-sufficient. Way back, pre-2008, our Parks and Rec department was subsidized by the town. Now, the subsidized amount is not what we're talking about in terms of trash, but it was subsidized basically a third of maybe 40% of their budget was supplemented by the town. And then we had the Great Recession of 2008. And the town manager at the time made a request that, we needed to try to get more resources into the general fund to prevent further layoffs and such. And we asked that the enterprise fund for Parks and Rec become totally self-sufficient, which they were, which they have been, which they did, and they have continuous to be over the past 13 years now. If we were to ask for a straight fund, enterprise fund, to fully have the users pay, and there's a lot of validity to having the users pay for a service. We do it at the rink. So if you don't use the rink, you're not paying for the rink. We do it for Parks and Rec. To do it for trash, we feel would be very much a burden for the users. Might be fair, it might be equitable to a lot of people in town, but we feel that the residents, have some responsibility to try to help the town. So if we were to ask the users to pay for this service, we would be approaching $400 a user. We tried very hard to not have that happen. So the best we could come up with now, we know the town does not have more than the 1.26. Honestly, I could very easily make an argument that the town needs that funding for many other projects and thoughts in town in regards to the budget. But we're trying to do, as easy as we possibly can on the users. So we're asking for basically a third of the fee needed from the users, and we're having the town basically still contribute 2/3 to the enterprise fund. Can we be a little tighter? We don't want to run a deficit where it's the first year of a fund, an enterprise fund, and we want to make sure we get it right. We don't want to come back, absolutely don't want to come back and say, oh, we made a mistake. It should be 180 or 175 or whatever. We've looked at numbers. Are there things like Councilor Farino said in terms of abatements, and some questions there are, but none of them affect the bottom line cost of the service. None of them affect the cost that we're going to have to come up with on a monthly basis to capital. We've put an awful lot of time and effort. You don't have to vote for it, but I think the alternative is going to be a very hard pill to swallow for the town, the interim town manager, and the council as a whole. So we're asking for a $160 fee to prevent a lot of other things that would be very harmful, I think, to the town and to the citizens of the town.
I personally.
Councilor DeMarco.
I'm sorry, President Boncory.
Okay, because Councilor Farino had his hand up as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize.
We'll come back to you.
I would like to exercise council privilege and put this off to the next council meeting, council president.
I think you can do that when it's under new business and something comes up. But this has been on the agenda for at least the last 3 meetings, I believe. So I don't think we can put it off. You can make, I think you can use your privilege to put it off. I think you can make a motion to table, and if that motion to table passes, it's put off. But I don't think you can use privilege on the 3rd time it's already been on the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to table for the next council meeting so that public comment can weigh in. We can get some feedback. Now that people know what's coming and it's a reality, I think it's important that the public weigh in. You know, we haven't had, you know, we've had the regulars at the council meetings, but not an overwhelming amount, which you would expect from an item that you can never get rid of. It's a fee and it'll never go away. And I think people need to weigh in and talk about that. And so if I'd like some support from my council members and colleagues to put this off for a couple of weeks.
I would second that, Council President.
Has been made and seconded to table. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye when your name is called.
Councilor Ruggiero.
I just have a question before the vote, if it's allowed.
Debate on a motion to table, so.
Okay, so can't make a point of information or?
A question, okay. Privilege.
Yeah, so just what are the repercussions of pushing this off 2 weeks? You know, I just want to know exactly what it is that we're voting on here. If we're, you know, is that going to put the Finance Committee and the Finance Commission, the Budget Committee, whomever it is, in a tough spot to try to put the budget together? How will this delay in 2 weeks affect that?
They have to put it together by June. I mean, the budget is effective in June. If we put it off till the next meeting, it gives them 2 weeks to have any kind of idea as to what's going on, I believe. But Councilor Terry, maybe you've been meeting with the Finance Commission and the Finance Committee.
Yeah, we've had, first of all, we've had 7 meetings on the trash fee, and we've had countless people at those meetings. We had a meeting as a council last week on a joint meeting with the planning board that didn't have many more people when you take out all the members of the planning board and the committee in the council than we basically have had at the trash meetings. You know, it's not popular, but you know, we can't just make popular decisions. We have to make the right decisions. And to go back to Councilor Ruggiero's question, the Finance Commission meets a crazy amount of times, as you know, because you go to many of the meetings. It meets a crazy amount of times. We had a 3-hour meeting last Thursday. We have a 3-hour meeting coming up this Monday and Thursday and the following Monday. So those meetings we'd still be able to have, but if we're talking about coming back to the council and not voting on a fee, then you're talking about the interim town manager along with the now head of the acting head of whatever you want to call of the finance department trying to come up and change $500,000. No, I shouldn't say $500,000, $600,000 in the budget that would affect every department, every line item. I'm not saying, you know, every council member has been invited, and I use the same arguments that have been used against me in the past. So every council member has been invited to these trash committee meetings. Everyone has had the opportunity to ask questions. We've answered more questions, I think, than anything else that's come before us in an awful long time, and come before any committee. It's not a popular choice. But, you know, I have to say, I think it's the right choice for the town. And we have to be thinking about the town in its totality.
We can't debate on this, but
nope.
This question as to time. The question was only about time. Okay. All right, all those in favor of table and signify by saying aye when your name is called. Denise, please take a roll.
Councilor Ruggiero.
No.
Councilor Flockhart.
No.
Councilor DeMarco.
Yes.
Councilor Terry.
No.
Councilor Honan,
No.
Councilor Conti,
Yes.
Councilor Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Christopher,
No.
President Boncory.
No, motion does not carry. It will not be tabled. We will vote on this tonight. The question is, shall the council adopt $160 trash fee? All right, and that's before us. Further discussion on it, Councilor DeMarco.
I would like to know the alternative, what budget cuts would look like if we did not pass this fee. Does anybody know what those budget cuts would look like?
Councilor
yeah, please.
Councilor DeMarco, I would invite you to come to the remainder of the Finance Commission meetings and the Finance Committee meetings. They happen on Tuesdays and Thursday nights for the next month and a half. And I would like you to, I'd ask you to come to all of those. You'll see that we have an extremely tight budget, as Councilor Terry explained. We cutting $600,000 from our existing budget. We're talking salaries and services. I would love to find somewhere to cut the budget. I would love to find, more money. But there's a lot of people on both of those committees and those commissions. And if we could find that money, we would. I think the people that have been attending those meetings have tried to explain that we're running in lean times. Interim Town Manager Delahanty has explained we are running on lean times. If you can think of anything that we could cut, Councilor DeMarco, we would be very glad to hear your opinions about what could be cut, services and salary wise.
Mr. President, if I could just echo Councilor Honan's comments, but also remind the council that $451,000 of this year's budget is miscellaneous revenues that we anticipate using from the ARPA's money for all the revenues that historically we're lagging behind because of COVID. So this year's budget uses all of our revenues, and then also there's miscellaneous revenue that we haven't even gotten yet to count for uncollected, unraised revenues that we normally would collect because of COVID. So we're already borrowing money from this ARPA's grant that we're going to have to find that $451,000 in 2 years. That's the position we're in. As Councilor Honan said, this is personnel cuts. That's what $600,000 represent. I can certainly go back and tell you how many police officers, firefighters, it's going to be across the board, and it'll be shared if I'm forced to do it. Because I don't think one department should take the brunt of it. I came up here last time, I had a CFO and I had an assistant town manager. I come up this time, the CFO hopefully will be replaced, but there's no assistant town manager. So, we've made those cuts. Our supply lines have all been cut by Anna Friedman, who's did a wonderful job organizing this budget. So I hope that answered some of your questions.
I think the budget is pretty much organized. $600,000, it would be like cutting out the midnight to 8 shift for the rest of the year for the police department. And I'm sure nobody wants to do that if you had to do it in one department. But it's split across the board. It's still a horrible deficit that you have to do. Councilor Christopher?
Yeah, I appreciate everything that Councilor DeMarco just brought up. I just think we're coming awfully close to the end of the year, and to say right now that we don't have a plan for how we're going to make up for this budget gap, and to tell department heads that they need to make up their their share of this $600,000 is going to really put them behind. And it's also, I think, going to make it much harder for us to plan how we're going to set the budget for the next year. I don't see any other alternative plan on the table that would work. I'm not psyched about doing this either, and it's indicative of global changes in this in how the trash is processed. So it's really not anybody's fault. We're not trying to point the finger here at anybody, but at the same time, we have to pass a budget in early June. That gives us one more meeting to give town administrators you know, options on how they would find $600,000 in a budget. And I just don't think that that's fair to them. And I think that it's important that we act expeditiously on this one way or another. Because if the answer is no, then we want to give them a month to find that $600,000. But I do think it's important that we act on it.
Okay, I think I'd like to move the question. I think everybody's been heard numerous times. And I'm going to ask all those in favor of voting for the $160 trash fee, signify by saying aye when your name is called. Please take a roll, Denise.
Council Ruggiero,
Yes.
Council Flockhart,
Yes.
Council DeMarco,
Yes.
Council Lettieri,
Yes.
Council Honan,
Yes.
Council Conti,
No.
Council Farino,
No.
Vice President Christopher,
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes, motion carries. Put in place by the administration. Thank you. Any other old business to come before the council? Anyone else have anything? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. And under new business, we received a report which was due today from the Town of Winthrop Ordinance Review Committee, made up of Jeffrey Rosario Turco, Chairman, Stephen Ruggiero, Counselor, Richard Farino, Counselor, Carla Vitale, Town Clerk, Alicia Del Vento, Robert Carroll, Kurt Millar, Ricky Baez, and James Cipolletta, Esquire. And the letter reads.
Did they say Robert Hanna?
Who's talking? The letter reads, May 3rd, 2021, Honorable Council President Philip Boncory and members of the Town Council. Pursuant to Section 9.6A of the Winthrop Town Charter, please find the report and recommendations of the Ordinance Review Committee. This report touches on the surface of changes that we feel need to be addressed in order to make our town government work for the residents of Winthrop. As the pandemic has wreaked havoc on our nation, our Commonwealth, and our town, it should therefore come as no surprise that the Ordinance Review Committee has been similarly affected. With the submission of this report, the work of the Ordinance Review Committee is officially completed. However, much work remains to be done. For these reasons, the Ordinance Review Committee respectfully requests that the committee, with the exception of the below signatory, be allowed to continue its work with the assistance of the Collins Center through the end of calendar year 2020. With the submission of this report and at the conclusion of our presentation of it to the Town Council, our work is completed. Thank you for the opportunity to serve the people of the Town of Winthrop as members of the Ordinance Review Committee, and it's signed very truly yours, Jeffrey Rosario Turco, Chairman. So I'll entertain a motion to accept this report and forward it to the Committee on Rules and Ordinance for further action.
Motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion been made to accept the report and forward it to the Committee on Rules and Ordinance. All those in, is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye when your name is called. Roll call, Denise, you're muted.
Yes. Council Ruggiero,
Yes.
Council Flockhart,
Yes.
Council DeMarco,
Yes.
Council Lettieri,
Yes.
Council Honan,
Yes.
Council Conti,
Yes.
Council Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Christopher,
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion carries. The next thing is, as you heard, former Councilor Craig Meal at the beginning of the meeting discuss the IT committee. And I was under the false assumption that it was, the IT committee was a committee of the town manager. And I know that our town manager, Austin Freeman, not former, but our town manager, Austin Freeman, had put in a committee, and he had at least one or two people that were on that committee. But I've been informed that it is a town council committee. So I would like to make the first appointment to that committee. And I'd like to appoint Craig Mill as chairman of the town council's IT committee. And I ask that the council adopt that recommendation, and I'll pass the gavel to Vice President Christopher.
Thank you, Mr. President. Former Councilor Craig Mill's name has been placed into nomination to lead the IT committee. Is there any discussion on the nomination? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll for the nomination.
Councilor Ruggiero?
Yes.
Councilor Flockhart?
Yes.
Councilor DeMarco?
Yes.
Councilor Terry?
Yes.
Councilor Honan?
Yes.
Councilor Conti?
Yes.
Councilor Farino?
Yes.
Vice President Christopher?
Yes.
President Boncory?
Yes, thank you. Looks like that is a vote, is a unanimous vote. And I'll take the gavel back and congratulate Craig Mills. See what you put yourself into with one phone call. Thank you. We have so many openings on so many committees. And so while you're out there, public, please think of getting on one of the committees and getting involved. I'm gonna now open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment?
Yes, we have Shannon Poulos, who had her hand up first. Shannon, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Just two quick comments. I think one, as it relates to the trash fee and the ability for the town to give public comment. I mean, I would agree. I think there's been many meetings on this and the ability to give public comment. Again, I realize it's been voted on, but I want to point out the fact that, you know, there are people on the council that have voted to either, you know, table or have taken exception to the time in which we've given our department heads to make cuts. But I just want to also point out that the same council members, you know, voted to approve an extension of a town manager's contract who failed to procure a private contract. So I think that we have to really look at the root cause of what and why we're in the position we're in right now. And, you know, that's not to necessarily public shame or to, you know, point fingers, but I think we have to look at systemic issues that we have around process and figure out a way how we can properly ensure that we have contracts buttoned up, because that's why we're in the position we're in. That's why we have a timing issue. That's why we have department heads who are going to be forced or would have been forced to make, you know, really drastic cuts. So we can't delineate these two issues. These are very, very, these are issues that are one and the same. I mean, we extended a contract of somebody who did not make sure that we had a proper contract. So I just ask the town council members who have seemed to be inconsistent on both of those issues to kind of reflect upon that and think about how we can rectify that going forward. My second comment would be, you know, as we think about the budget going forward, I know that we've talked a lot about, you know, heads, it relates to alternatives, whether it be stabilization transfers or, you know, cutting heads or a fee. You know, I mean, I think that there are actually other areas in the budget that are not popular and subject to union negotiations, but, you know, we have very big line items in our budget related to, you know, salaries, benefits, retirement, otherwise. You know, I think we talk a lot about some of these other non-union negotiated line items, but there actually are, you know, very significant contributions the town makes to insurance. And, you know, I think it's important that I'm not actually making a recommendation whether we should or shouldn't do something, but I think that, you know, it's important that the town and the citizens really look hard and close at the budget and look at the biggest line items in the budget, and really think about what it is that makes those up. Because unless you're really, really focused on that, I think it's hard to ask the right questions. So would just really ask that people, when it comes to these next set of negotiations, really understand the implications of what those negotiations mean in the budget, because those are really the big ticket items. And again, that's not to suggest that we don't run lean. And you know, but again, you know, we're forced now in a situation to make a decision around a fee, because we're bound by contracts. The next round of contract negotiations is going to be the opportunity to really understand the implications on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. That's why I put you on the Finance Commission, so you can look at this with your expertise. Any other public comment?
Yes. Somebody that is signed in as Zoom user.
Okay, would you please unmute and identify yourself?
Hi, Kathleen Capuccio. How are you?
Hi, Kathleen. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. First of all, I just want to thank Chief Delahanty for once again stepping up for this town, as he always does. So, Chief, just really, really thank you. And I just had a question that I know this isn't, you know, a back and forth, but maybe could be addressed next council meeting. And that was just with regard to the trash containers. I believe that the way it works is the 160 per year. It's one container per residential unit. And if that is the case, I was just wondering, like I know, for example, my family, there's 5 of us. We will need more than one container. So I was just wondering, and I apologize, this was probably addressed. I was just wondering if, for example, my household could get another container, and so yes or no if we could, and then would we just pay an additional 160 per year? So again, I just didn't know, maybe at the next council meeting, if someone might be able to address that, that would be great. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any other public comment?
Yes, we have Wendy Millar-Page.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. In terms of the trash, I know this isn't popular, and I am somebody who does not like to add fees or anything to anyone's household. The Zero Waste Committee is working really hard to try and help people to figure out not only for their personal usage, but how the town and the town government is utilizing what they do for trash and recycling, the schools, etc. But I do understand that it's not popular. And one of the things that we are talking about, and we've been discussing with the Finance Committee, is having a hybrid system where we would purchase bags. So if you have a container, you get your one container free from the town. You could then purchase additional bags, and it would be able to be placed out in another barrel that would be identified as your pay-as-you-throw barrel. That's your personal barrel. And then it could be utilized by purchasing the bags, and you could put out the additional trash. So, I mean, there are other things that will be coming down the road, and a lot more education that'll be coming out once all of the details are nailed down. And I appreciate you all taking a vote on it tonight so that everyone can start to move forward on getting those things put in place so that we can have a really good education around how we as Winthrop handle our solid waste. That's all.
Thank you for your work, Wendy, on the Zero Waste Committee. And as everybody should be aware, you're going to still have your recycle barrel and now a trash barrel. So every house will have, 2 barrels, a recycle and a trash barrel. And then whatever comes up with the additional that the administration puts forward down the future. Is there anyone else on public comment?
There are no hands up.
Really? There are no hands, or there are no fans? Which did you say? We have
no, I think we have a lot of fans,
yeah.
But there are no hands up for public comment.
Because I expected a lot more conversation over the trash, but I don't see it. Hearing none, under public relations, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make? Hearing none, we have openings on the Airport Hazards Committee, Board of Appeals, Planning Board, TSAC, IT Committee, and the Conservation Committee. So if you're interested in helping the town move forward, please get in touch with me. Please take out an application online, send it to Denise or call me directly, and I'd be happy to put you all to work. Okay? Anyone, anything else for public relations? Hearing none, I want to thank everybody for being so attentive. I think the council meeting was a great council meeting. Please stay safe, and let's have 0, 0, 0 going forward as far as pandemic cases. And thank you again. Good night, Winthrop.
Motion to adjourn.
The motion to adjourn is made. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye when your name is called.
Council Ruggiero,
Yes.
Council Flockhart,
Yes.
Council DeMarco,
Yes.
Council Lettieri, Council Lettieri,
Yes.
Council Onan,
Yes.
Council LeConte,
Yes.
Council Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Christopher,
Yes.
President
Yes.
Boncory.
Yes, Silly, yes.
Thank you.
All right, motion has been approved to adjourn.
Good night.